new Disney product that's bringing back something that you recognize from the past and making it brand new again to swindle money from you. This movie is about Tim Burton desperately trying to find funding for his next passion project, and in order to do that, he has to work with Disney to bring back Dumbo and take that 60-minute cartoon and make it an almost 2-hour film in live action. And we all know how well that's worked out for him in the past, remaking Disney properties like Alice in Wonderland. That worked out great for him, right? I mean, financially it did, yeah, but... yeah. I'm sorry that I'm having a rough time kind of hiding how I really felt about this movie, but I can't really help it, because I was honestly going into this film with some hope, because I recently rewatched the original Dumbo, the 60-minute long one, and I actually was kind of reminded that there's definitely a lot more you can do with the story if you were going to remake it like Tim Burton did. So I was going into this film kind of hoping that Tim Burton did exactly that with this film. Like in the trailers, we saw that they were focusing more on the humans and that there was no talking animals, so there's already an artistic change with the story there. So I was still going in with some hope that Tim Burton had done something really clever with this, and that he was going to remake the film properly and was going to remind everyone why films should be remade in the first place, to make them better, not just to cash in on something that people recognize. But unfortunately, that's exactly what this film is. I walked out of this film fuming. I disliked it a lot, and I mean a lot more than I ever could have expected to dislike a film like this. I was clinging on to one grade for a long time, but after sleeping on it and waking up and still being very annoyed with the final product, I might have to lower that grade before I give it in this review. This video started off pretty negative, so I want to talk about the things that I did like real quickly. The CGI for Dumbo looks fantastic. It looks like a real elephant, even with the big blue eyes that they give him to give him more character. It looks really good and looks like something that you could reach out and actually touch. The musical score by Danny Elfman, one of Tim Burton's favorite composers to work with, it was really good. Like, there are a couple moments where I actually got some form of goosebumps because of the music that was starting to kick in, so I'll give him full credit for that. Other than that, I thought Danny DeVito also had some moments of comedy in this film, and I overall liked his performance, but I also kind of found myself thinking that he was working against what the movie's tone was at the same time. This is where I'm going to start segueing into my cons a bit more, because I really don't have a whole lot to like here, because a lot of people I've heard have talked about how this movie's like visually stunning, it looks so good. I didn't get that sense at all. Like, from a costume cinematography perspective, it looks kind of bland and dry. There's a couple moments where Dumbo's flying and it's like, man, that looks really good, because it's the CGI work that's being done for Dumbo. But other than that, I wasn't taken aback by some beautiful scene that Tim Burton was showing me. It all just felt very been there, done that visually, and also the CGI, oh man. Other than the Dumbo CGI, everything else, I was just kind of constantly reminded that I wasn't in a real place, I wasn't at a real circus, that everything was kind of artificial. Like you look up behind the people and you see the sky and it doesn't really look like it's a real sky. Like, honestly, I was constantly questioning, like, are they even at a real place right now? Because sometimes I'd look behind them and the sky doesn't even look like it's blending in well with them. Like, the grass surrounding them doesn't even feel like it's a real place. There's a really weird artificial vibe to this film. And there is, of course, CGI in this film, some that you can easily point out, but the fact that there are times where I was kind of questioning, like, wait, that doesn't even look real where they're standing right now. That's not good as far as, like, a transportive experience like all films should be. And I think this movie probably should have had a more focused kind of vision as far as making everything look real, like you can walk into it and it's like, wow, this is a real place I'm in. Kind of like what I said earlier about the Dumbo CGI, that you could feel, you felt like you could reach out and touch him. But whenever you're outside and you see, like, the sky in the background, whenever you see some of the buildings at this place called Dreamland, it doesn't look like a tangible place. It was so weird. There is a word to describe those visual effects that also perfectly describes the movie, and that is phony. This film overall just gives off a really phony, sentimental vibe that definitely will trick people into thinking it's more beautiful and touching than it actually kind of is. There are moments where I was like, if you would just slow down the movie, if you would actually get us more invested, I might be able to actually connect with the characters that you're showing us, and I might actually be able to connect to Dumbo as a character, but this movie just kind of goes by, and it just feels like stuff is happening with no real rhyme or reason just because, well, something like this kind of happened in the original, so we gotta bring it back, and in order to progress the plot some more, now this has to happen. It doesn't really feel like it has any sort of drive to do anything. It just feels so phony. Colin Farrell is a fantastic actor, and there are times in this movie where I'm like, you are giving a better performance than what this movie actually deserves, but even then, the performance you're giving doesn't match up with the material. You have barely anything to do. They try to shoehorn in some story with he was in the war, lost his arm, and his wife is gone, and he's just with his 2 kids. And I thought they were going to touch up on that more, that make the movie more about that, since this movie is trying to focus on the human characters as the leads. But they don't. Like, the way they mention the mom throughout the film just felt so, like, last minute, like, oh shoot, I forgot the mom was kind of important, so here's a couple lines referencing her. And it just makes that whole family unit not work at all here. It just feels like these guys just met on the set one day, and they were told, hey, you're family, so, hug. Alright. Yeah, we hugged, we're good, let's move on to the next bit. And speaking of those kids, I will give credit to the young boy in the film. That's another thing that I guess I kind of liked about this movie, is that he was actually giving a pretty energetic, lively performance. Unfortunately, where it kind of counters that, is the fact that they don't focus on him enough. They focus more on the sister. And I don't want to be rude to any kid actor out there, I really don't, because they're young and they have many years to go, but this girl... Every single line delivered by her has the same inflection. She has the same delivery over and over and over, to the point where it kind of just became like this pattern where every time she spoke, you'd pick up on that pattern and you'd keep hearing it. It's just so, the way she delivered her lines was not good. And it's like Tim Burton almost directed her to be that way. Because I'm looking at the brother, and it's like he's actually giving something here. Colin Farrell, he doesn't have enough to do, but he's attempting to do something. Danny DeVito's kind of humorous, and he's not completely dead. This girl, however, stands out as so boring and lifeless that it must be. It must be something Burton was doing. Another thing that could have really helped this family unit is the introduction of Eva Green's character. Eva Green is an actress that I really liked. I think my first movie with her was Dark Shadows, and I loved her in it. Dark Shadows is a childhood favorite of mine. And after that, I've seen a couple other movies with her that I've really liked her in. Her last project with Tim Burton was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. The movie was kind of okay, but she was really good in it. And in this film, she is very similar to Colin Farrell, giving it her all, but there's nothing for her to really warrant that in the screenplay, because everything feels so rushed and kind of unfocused that when they try to have her affect this family that we see, it just feels so, once again, phony. It just feels very forced. She's a character that is a prime example of, I'm going to start out one way, but then I'm going to change as the film goes on. But it just feels so cookie cutter, like, well, you're the kind of character that would do that, so let's just do it anyways. We don't need to really focus on any motivation for it. We can throw in, like, one thing to kind of motivate her, I guess, but we don't need to focus on it at all. Like, people are going to see this movie anyways. It doesn't matter about the story. And I don't want to blame Tim Burton entirely on this film, because honestly, I think it is a very interesting approach. That's another thing I'll give this movie some credit for, is that they came at this remake with an interesting approach to completely change the narrative, basically, but I just don't think it really works with this film. Honestly, I think it might have been better if you had talking animals in this, but of course we won't see that, at least for maybe another several years or so when Disney thinks it's finally time to remake it or something. But like I said, I don't want to blame Tim Burton entirely, because the writer of this film, something that has shocked, I think, everyone ever since it was announced, Aaron Kruger, the guy who wrote Transformers 2, 3, 4, really? That guy? Why? I think everyone was worried about him because they still thought that there was going to be the talking animals, and they were really worried about the crows. They're not in this film. Thank God there's no talking racist crows, but I really do think the way he wrote this film at the end of the day is a main contributor to why this movie feels so bland and forced, you know? I think it really has a lot to do with the screenwriting. It's like I'm watching the movie and it's like I could literally feel each calculated beat that they were trying to do, each emotional kind of beat that they were trying to put in there to get people to side with these characters, to side with Dumbo, and I just wasn't buying into it. There's the famous scene in the animated classic where Dumbo is under Jumbo's mad elephant cage, and Jumbo sticks her trunk out and comforts Dumbo, and she starts singing the song Baby of Mine, and it's a beautiful scene. I watched it a couple days ago. I started to tear up. It's beautiful. It still holds up. It's a beautiful scene. In this film, when it happens, someone else is singing the song, because no talking animals, and you see the elephants reach up at each other, and then it cuts, and then that's it. And that was the end of the scene, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't feel any kind of emotion at all. And obviously, it's something that you feel bad about, because any animal that's separated from its mother, yes, of course, that's a bad thing to see, but in this movie, it happened so quickly and with so little development, and with bully, like, abusive characters that are so cartoony. I was blown away that Tim Burton directed them to be that way, that I just felt myself really annoyed at everything. It's not like the original animated film where the build-up to Jumbo being caged up is slightly more understandable, to say the least. Like, it's not something you'd root for, but it's like I can see how that would happen. But in this film, it happens so quickly and it's so dumb that it just felt like, well, what else were you expecting when you were doing that? Like, why are you making all of these decisions? And there's other storytelling things that happen, like something that happens in the beginning of the film that's supposed to make you feel bad, but then later in the movie they reveal something purely coincidental that even the people behind said thing didn't even know about, and I was like, okay, that's... what? Like, I get it's a Disney movie, and it's kind of magical and whimsy and for kids, but this coincidental is too, that's reaching, man. That's really reaching as far as suspension of disbelief goes. I can totally buy into elephants flying, man, but not this. And a lot of the story really does fall apart when you do get to this dreamland attraction place run by Michael Keaton. And, you know, other than the fact that it's really poorly written as far as, like, generic business guy wanting to take money off of this beautiful thing, which is very ironic considering that's exactly what Disney is doing right now with Dumbo. But also at the same time, Michael Keaton's performance is not elevating that character. It's so awkward. It's legit, probably, and I haven't seen all of his movies, but probably his worst performance, maybe? Because at first he walks up, and I didn't even know what he was trying to do, but I watched the Double Toasted review, and Martin, he nailed it right on the head. He sounded like he was doing Johnny Depp, and I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what he was trying to do. Like, I kind of recognized it. And honestly, me telling you this right now, go watch this movie, and as soon as he shows up when he starts delivering his lines, you will start to think that he is trying to do a Johnny Depp, because he's doing the same kind of drunken Jack Sparrow kind of tone like that. But then as the movie goes on, his accent switches back to like a normal Michael Keaton, but then it goes to like New York, Brooklyn Michael Keaton, and it keeps switching and switching, and it's like, oh my god, the guy for some reason can't pick an accent, or Tim Burton is telling him to keep switching his voice like he did with Johnny Depp in Alice in Wonderland for some reason. But in that one it makes slightly more sense because he's the Mad Hatter, so whatever, that's something mad, he switches accents. But in this one he's just a businessman, so it doesn't make any sense. But then also seeing later on in the film when it comes time to try to take him down, it felt so... I don't even know the word to describe, just stupid. Like, they turned his character from like a smart businessman who's able to do all these bad things because he is just so good at what he does, but then he just turns into just hissy fit kid, basically. Like, I don't know what they were doing with that. A lot of people are gonna go see this movie. I was sitting next to a family, and it seemed like the young children were enjoying it, even some of the parents. So this movie's gonna make a lot of money, obviously. We know this. This is Disney. They remake something that they know that you recognize, make it brand new and release it, and people go out to see it, give them more money, and supports them as far as them making other things, like The Lion King or Aladdin. Like, this has been happening for a long time now. It's worked out better in some other cases as far as the remaking and making better goes, but in this case, I don't think it worked out at all, And I'd really appreciate it if some audience members would finally kind of wake up to the fact that they're being tricked, that they are being kind of emotionally manipulated by just the idea of the poor elephant being bullied, when really there's no real story for that elephant to really get attached to or anything. It's just, oh no, look at the CGI elephant being bullied by these cartoony actors, so feel bad. No, this movie, I stand by what I said, it feels so phony and forced, and I don't know why Disney would really approve of this at all. I don't know why Disney would do this. I mean, I do. I know they're doing it for money, but I don't know why they'd look at this final product and go, yeah, that's good, let's release it into theaters, you know? I'm gonna give Dumbo a D+. I was trying to hold on to a C- after I saw it, but my thoughts on this are just, I'm so angry at this movie that I can't have it at that high of a grade. I have to have it at a D+. I like Danny Elfman's score for the most part. The CGI for Dumbo looked very realistic. The kid boy was solid, and Danny DeVito had his moments, but everyone else I thought either had nothing to do, had too much to do, or Tim Burton was just doing too much with the visual aesthetics that it just came off really looking fake and forced, that I just kind of got alienated from it. There's no emotional story to get attached to. The regular story I can't get attached to. It's too generic. And also, for a guy who really likes making movies about the misfits, the freaks, the actual freaks in this freak show don't really have that much to do in this film other than some third act stuff that just doesn't feel like it's built up on anything at all. Once again, it just feels very forced and generic, and I hate this movie. I hated it more than I thought. Is it one of the worst movies of the year? No, it's not like a D- or an F or a D or anything. It's a D+. I'm still standing by that grade, even after constantly talking bad about it, but I just can't escape this hatred that I have for this film, this cynically almost kind of made product that just doesn't work. It doesn't work, and I wish Disney would pump the brakes and be like, okay, we're only gonna remake stuff that needs to be remade, and we're gonna make sure that it has the right people attached that want to tell the story. But instead, it felt like with this one, well, Dumbo's a freak and a misfit. Tim Burton likes making movies about that, and he made $1 billion off of Alice in Wonderland. Come on, bring him back. We're gonna remake Dumbo now, guys. That's the next one in the slate, in the corporate slate. Up next is Aladdin, and then The Lion King. We're gonna trick audiences countless times every month. Every month there's a new Disney product that's gonna trick you into giving us money. Thanks. Bye, 20th Century Fox, you'll be missed. But if you've seen Dumbo, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.